Okay, hi everybody. I'm Terry Ann, and welcome to my show today where I have my friend Linda from Canada. She's on, and we're going to share our story about how we met. It's intriguing, really intriguing. Um, I had just lost Anthony not long, it was only maybe a few weeks.
Yeah.
He had just passed, and I was on Instagram and one of Linda's posts popped up and it was about her son Dylan, who she had lost. What it's about a year, you're about a year and a half ahead of me.
Just over the year.
So
Yeah.
just over a year, and there were many similarities right away that we noticed. She reached out to me right away, and we started corresponding about Dylan and Anthony. And over time we kept connecting, and so they've had this message come through from both of them that we are to do some work together. So we started a Facebook group called the Grief Guides, and it really is about them, Dylan and Anthony, guiding us, the moms on earth, to help people through grief. So that's how our story came about. And you would never, we were just discussing earlier how crazy this is. You're in Canada, I'm in Arizona, and there was no way that our lives could have crossed paths. And just by one little post that just popped up on my phone, we were able to establish this friendship and realize how really intertwined not only the death of Dylan and Anthony that our lives are, the similarities, but our upbringings, right? Our parents. And so we
Yeah.
have many similarities that sort of intertwine us. So I want you to share about your story about Dylan with us today, if you would like
Oh
to
my
do that.
gosh. Yeah, Dylan's death was sudden, unexpected. And when you think about intuition, a mother's intuition, I knew that week leading up to his death, there was something wrong. And Dylan he had lived with mental health issues from, I knew when he was 2 years old, he was going to struggle. And we were very much intertwined. And when he moved out from home, and of course, doesn't just move a couple of cities over, he decides to go 3, 4 provinces away. So I always knew when he was sliding.
Mm.
And we had a deal that he had to either just let me know by some manner if he wasn't up for talking, just that he was, there.
Okay.
And so I could always knew when the slide was coming, but this feeling that week was different. I knew that there was something more going on. And it turned out he had fallen down a flight of stairs and lived in a basement apartment and severely fractured his skull.
Oh,
And in typical Dylan flair, I won't go to the hospital. I'm just going to sleep this off. That's what he always did as a child, just
mhm.
whatever illness he had. And I started to panic. And we had to call the police. And they went in to do a wellness check. And they found him deceased. And it was just like, wow,
Wow.
now.
And he
But
was 27, like
he
Anthony?
was 28 and he
Mm.
died 4 days after his birthday. And that was another thing. He hadn't picked up the email birthday
Mm.
transfer money. So it was like, But it's been such a journey. Um, even even that night, like we were on holidays, of course, in the middle of the bush, no cell service. So we're coming out, and my oldest son calls me. And one of the first things I said was, I always knew this day would come. I just didn't think it would be this soon.
Mm.
And that sort of, I think, was a testament to the bond that we had, but also kind of was foreshadowing the bond we were going to have in the spiritual world.
Oh, how profound.
That, and I felt that from the get-go. So I fight it, I think, every day. But I do notice if I don't, where I feel Dylan the most is out in nature. And he often said that was where his mind was truly at peace. So that's where I talk to him a lot. And I've noticed that when I start to slide, I haven't been talking to him. And this, the signs sort of stop.
And you haven't been out in nature.
Yeah, I haven't been out in nature. So it's there. If you're open to it and you're in tune to it, there's one thing, like I'm 3.5 years into it now. And I think what I find so profound is the physical love is powerful. The bond is strong. But a spiritual love, wow. Like I'm getting goosebumps just
Me
talking about
too.
it. It's like, it's deeper, it's purer. And I know he's at peace because he also was type 1 diabetic.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had that. And I look at it as he doesn't have the mental health issues anymore.
Right.
And, I miss him like crazy. And I miss him even more when I realize I haven't been talking to him.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so we talk a lot about that love never dies.
It
Your
doesn't.
continued relationship still goes on. And I think even for me, being a medium and a healer, being in that spiritual presence,
Mm-hmm.
having the physical loss was one of the most difficult aspects of my grief.
Yeah.
Even though I knew that he was okay. I knew that he was in a good place. But not having the physical being here with me. And I can tell you our relationship is much closer now that
Mm-hmm.
he's in spirit. I mean, when he was here, he was 27. He did what he wanted when he wanted, he'd check in with me every week. Hey, Ma, how's it going? But not, and we'd saw each other at holidays and everything, but it's different. So I
It
say
is.
now in the spiritual, he's always with me.
Yeah.
And I think for parents, especially that have lost a child, to realize that, to come to that conclusion, I think a lot of parents, and that's one of the reasons I think it's most important for us to get our message out there, is a lot of parents think they're going crazy,
Yeah.
and people say that to them because they're experiencing this physical loss of their child, and they're like, well, but I see him, or I feel him, or I hear him, and people will tell them, people that are not knowledgeable, that you're losing your mind.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for people to know that these instances, these things that you're hearing, seeing, feeling, they do exist.
Yeah.
There's no other feeling like it that I can explain when I feel Anthony come into my field. I've not experienced that in the physical lifetime that I have with that spiritual being that comes in. So you're not crazy and you are experiencing some sort of paranormal, but love never dies. That relationship continues on.
It's incredible because the other day, I take our dog for this hike and I found a beautiful trail not far from the house. So I was out there, and of course, it's bitterly cold up here right now, and I'm all bundled up. And something told me to take a selfie. Like I have been working on, it was over 5 days. I was taking photos, things that were inspiring me, but that I could relate to grief, because I want to do a photo essay of grief for
Mhm.
people who can't articulate it. They don't have the words, but I'm thinking if they see something visual, it might help them, or for those who are supporting someone grieving.
Right.
So I thought, I've been taking all these beautiful photos. I never took one of me. So all I have is my cell phone. My hands are freezing. And when you go to press the photo button, like sometimes you could get 20 pictures of you just in that same image. And it wasn't until after I got home, I looked at it and I had taken two of myself. And in the first one, it's just me. And on that same walk, to add more background to it, I had a chat with Dylan and I told him I was sorry, that I realized part of my slide earlier leading up to the holidays was because I had stopped talking to him.
Mm.
And I apologized. And I said, I'm getting it. I'm slow, thick-headed, but I'm getting it. And in the next image, and it would have been less than a second apart, right? There is a spirit. Like
Wow.
it's unbelievable, this white fog that's going through. It was a beautiful, clear day. There was no fog.
Wow.
And that was like,
Beautiful.
okay, I'm getting it.
And so
Yep,
that's how they give us that physical
that is.
evidence
Yeah,
for us to see.
yeah. And it's like, I'm not doubting it anymore. It's
Mhm.
like you say, you think you're crazy. You think that you're missing them so much that I'm imagining these things, but we're not.
And then the path that they lead us on, we're both writers. We're,
Yeah.
I was not a writer.
Yeah. Look at you. You have a book published. Oh,
And I
goodness.
do have a published book out, but I fought it tooth. I mean, he was
Yeah.
on me like my girlfriend was like, "Oh, do you ever give her a break?" Because he was on me too.
Yeah.
Can I even grieve? But I found that process of writing it was so cathartic for me. I really healed a lot of pain and suffering, and I was able to share that. So I think the book expresses that authentically for people to
Yeah.
connect with through this. It wasn't like I was, 20 years out and I'm writing this book. We're
No.
still raw. I mean, that book is very raw.
The
Um,
thing that I find about your book too is it is raw, but it's what people need. And I think it's a book, like of course I devoured it, but then it's to go back, because I think whatever stage of grief you're in at that point, you're going to get something out of it that you missed the first time.
yeah,
That's what I
I
find.
I agree. And so you are writing now because Dylan has been on your butt too. I mean, we
Oh
say
my,
all the time, our kids are very similar. We both had three boys, and
yeah,
our kids are very similar. We curse, and so they're like, you got to friggin' do this. There's no more wasting time. So we laugh about it often, how
oh,
similar they are.
I don't know if you can see this or not, but a friend of mine gave me this for Christmas.
I love it.
Yeah, everybody, like, it's coming from everywhere. And I looked back, I thought it was only a year since I hadn't posted on my blog. It'll be 2 years in March.
Wow.
So I'm working on my comeback post, but it's saying like what happens once you've suffered this loss. You go on a journey. It's your choice whether you go on it or not. And if you're willing to lean into it, be open to that spiritual love, it's very profound. Like, I'm still just talking about it.
Yeah.
It
And so let's talk about that because it's not all roses. It's not like we're sitting here
no,
like, oh, this is great. I was able to connect with him and everything. He told me what to do and I did it. Because it's not like that. We go through the
no,
waves. There are waves that come in and they take us down to our knees and we're not able to do the things that they're asking us to do. And
yeah,
then it's like all of a sudden, all right, now I've released a lot of that heaviness. And now, all right, I'm back up. And so here I am. And so in those spaces of those ebbs and flows, we're able then to create. But
yes.
we were saying earlier with the grief guides, we started it and then it was like a complete stall. We were like ready to go. We're on it. Let's go today. Okay. It's done. And then it's like, okay.
Well, I was thinking about our members. They must think we've just fallen off the face of the earth. But then I thought, no, they know what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't all roses. It's, I'm back to having the night terrors where I act them out. And that's all trauma. It's, I think my husband's afraid to sleep with me because the first night I did hit him in the face. The second night I kicked the daylights out of our blankets. And the third night I woke myself up punching the pillow.
Mm.
So grief affects everything.
And let's
It,
talk about that. You mentioned earlier about the unresolved trauma that you
yes.
have from a childhood.
Yeah.
So that also through the grief came to the surface. And we were talking
There,
about how going forward, it needs to be released because where we're going, we can't bring any of that heavy baggage with us.
no,
Talk about that a little, about how unresolved trauma has now come up for you with the grief as well.
I think like the first year, when I look back, was numb and shock. The second year, reality set in. The pain was more intense. The third year was anger. Like I'm only halfway into the third year, but I didn't know I was capable of rage. And it wasn't until one day I opened up the fridge door and a container of mustard came out of the door. And I could have taken that container and like if I could have tossed it into something that would have shattered into a million pieces, it was going. And then I just, for a minute, I stepped back and I thought, girl, like, what is wrong with you? Don't have an angry bone in your body. Well, I've, suppressed it for 57 years. And then my mom's mental health had declined and her psychiatric team came in to talk to me. And for the first time ever, I was told what the name of her condition was. And then all of that just came to the surface, like roaring. And it was like, oh, I naively thought I had dealt with all of this. But the trauma of Dylan's death was just starting to pull the layers back. It's like an onion.
Mm-hmm.
And trauma work is hard work on top of grief work.
It is really difficult work. It is really getting down in those trenches and looking at those things we don't want to look at.
We don't, because the pain is so intense.
Yes.
And that's where I realize now I'm grieving the childhood I didn't have. And I'm grieving my mother while she's still living. Because I never had, I thought my mother just didn't like me.
Mm.
But she has narcissistic personality disorder.
Right.
And the important part, if you're grieving, you're dealing with trauma, is to educate yourself. And I'm a researcher and a writer, and I'm reading it all. And it's like, whoa, there really isn't anything wrong with me per se, because I've been surviving my entire life in order to, have that my parents, like my mom also had depression, she had suicide attempts. My father was a paranoid schizophrenic, both are alcoholics. So, that's a lot of trauma for an only child.
Right.
But all those tools I learned to survive childhood, they don't work when you're grieving. They're just so, throw them.
You're going to bring it to the surface and rip you apart so that you can look at this and what it is. And we're going to tear you down until you feel like you're nothing. And then all of a sudden there's like a shift.
There is a shift. And the big shift, like the post that I'm working on right now to say I'm coming back to the blog, I've entitled it Becoming. And the way I'm looking at it is, yes, I've been stripped bare. But the person I was before Dylan died wasn't real. She was just surviving. I'm becoming the person I was designed to be. Like the blog, I used to just write about funny shit, pardon me, that happened. It was just stupid stuff. And I thought my job was to entertain people. So then I let the blog sit because it was like, well, nobody's going to want to read my sad stuff. But the humor was just a mask for the pain.
Right.
So now it's like,
a lot of comedians say that, a lot of people that are in the business, it's a mask that they wear. And people laugh about it because it's funny, but it's true really to them. And so that unlayering for you, but your work is so needed in the world. We were talking earlier how you started a new Instagram called Dear Dylan Love Mom.
Yeah.
And those are your letters that you've been writing to him. And can you see, like, when you're writing, like, the progression and the change within you, how they've also shifted and changed?
It's incredible, actually. Like, I'm starting to like me. I'm working slowly to getting to love the me part, but I like this new Linda. I'm really sad, at the torn apart the way it came about. But in the back of my mind, like, I see Dylan just cheering for me in heaven,
Yeah.
because he saw something in me I never saw. And I can see him like, there, that's my mom. See, I told you, she had that in her. And so that carries me forward. But it's when I look back, like, when I say I never stopped writing, I would write on whatever was in front of me. If I had an idea, went on a sticky note, back of envelopes. So I have quite a pile to go through. And sometimes I look at it and I can't believe I wrote that.
Mm.
It's like those words couldn't have come from me. Where did they come from? So then it's trying to accept that you have a gift. I was given a gift with words. So I'm just the messenger.
Right.
Those words weren't necessarily mine. They were coming from above.
A higher authority, I always say.
Yeah, and who am I to disagree with that higher authority and not share the gift? So that's where the struggle comes from. But I can't believe the change in my writing. I found a piece where, like, it was just a couple of sentences, and I said, I can't believe that there is a sacredness to grief. It's beautiful. And somebody might be listening to this thinking, she's nuts. Like, there is no sacredness, there's no beauty.
Yeah.
There is if you open yourself to it.
Yeah, we say from the hardest, most deepest, painful stuff comes this beauty. And that
It
beauty is in helping others to understand our journeys are not the same. And we were talking about that earlier too, is that grief for each of us is very different. And although it can have similarities, our journeys will never be the same. How we go about grief, when we think we should be done, or how other people think it should go for us. But that path and that journey to get to the point of beauty, just the beauty that came out of such a tragic loss,
yeah.
and being able to share that with others. I think that's the true beauty, is that you're shining your light. You've been through all this stuff and you're still able to stand up there and say, hey, I'm here and I'm still kicking.
It's true. I had a friend come out the other day, and I took her on this trail for a walk. And she's about a year ahead of me in her grief journey.
Mhm.
Her son died by suicide, and our paths crossed at my job. And when I returned to work after bereavement leave, I was very guarded. I wasn't talking to anybody. I was just fighting to get through the day. And one day she came to rebook her appointment, and she said, oh, Kathy, she says, that's not where you put that. And I said, where are you trying to do it? And she says, well, I'm trying to put it in my Audible book app, but that's not working. And I said, how do you find that listening to books? Because I said, I'm a voracious reader, but since Dylan died, I can't read anything. And she goes, I'm sorry, sweetie, who's Dylan? And then I realized my mistake. The guard was down.
Mm.
So I explained, and she put her hand on my hand, and she said, if anybody knows what you're going through, it's me. My son, Paul, died 1 year ago.
Wow.
And we get into the sacredness. We agree to meet once a month, and we call it our sacred time.
Mm-hmm.
And on this walk, I was showing her some of the images I had, was taking. And I said, I want to do a photo essay. And all of a sudden she just looks at me and she goes, you know, you're going to move mountains, right? And I went like, get out. And she says, why? I said, the day before, I just wrote a paragraph about the unmovable mountain.
Wow.
I mean, it's
So
not
many
coincidence.
synchronicities. And when your eyes are open to see that, it's like they come in so many different ways. And like we were
Yes.
saying earlier, if they can't get to you, they'll get to you through somebody else. If you're,
Well,
I don't hear you, so let me go through somebody else.
and my husband had come on the walk a few days before, and I was snapping these pictures, and he goes, what are you doing now? And I said, well, I have this plan for this photo essay. And I said, I showed him something that I could see in it, what it represented, but he couldn't. And then all of a sudden he goes, you're really creative. But, the self-doubting me says, well, creativity doesn't clean the house. And he said, well, would you rather be known for having a clean house, or would you rather be known as someone who helped someone in their grief?
Right.
And then it was like, yeah, that's pretty profound. But it's me trying to get over my limiting beliefs, right?
Yes, it's about releasing those limiting beliefs. We
It
can't
is.
us.
Yeah. So it's just, Dylan never ceases to amaze me. And then it's when we talk and the way you tell me things about like how Anthony speaks to you or comes through, it's like those two are up there. They are
They're co-conspiring to get
conspiring.
us to co-create because they're like, look, you're a little slow here, could you move it
That's right.
along?
And then it's just reaffirming that spiritual love.
Yes, and it makes me feel so much better when I talk to women like you and I meet
Yeah.
women who have lost a child and our sons, our children have this connection.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the importance of the grief guides is because they're guiding us and we're guiding others. There's an intricate layer that we are all intertwined. We are all as one.
Yeah.
So we want to definitely be more prevalent in bringing those voices to the forefront. Um,
Exactly.
we are going to stand up and say, woohoo, we're here with them behind us, pushing us to the ledge.
Oh, and I think like when I saw the medium was only 6 months after Dylan had died, and I just wanted to know he was okay. And she said at one point, she goes, well, how long has it been since Dylan died? 6 months. Oh, she said, had I known this, I would have said no to this appointment. She said, a young person usually takes years for their spirit to come through. She says, but I have never been in a reading where the love has been this strong. And she started to cry.
Yeah, I'm getting chills.
Oh, and it's just, and I have no concept of what she's really saying because to me, that's not unusual. It's like, well, that's just the way Dylan is.
Right.
He loved his mama. Like he wasn't one for physical touch, but boy, when he gave me a hug,
Yeah. I
you
think
felt.
that's a very interesting similarity that they both have is that those hugs and the twin flame energy, which we
Yeah.
are all about going forward. And when I found out we were twin flames, and I have a feeling you and Dylan are twin flames too.
Yeah.
I'm
It,
getting that very clear, like right here.
oh,
You're getting it. You're getting it.
yeah, it's about time, because Dylan wasn't the most patient person. So I'm hoping he's learning some now.
Yeah.
But, when you speak of that, like the friend Kathy I mentioned, her son was 27, Dylan was 28. And when Dylan's angelversary comes on, I always try to do something positive. And this past one, Dylan had these funny t-shirts he wore. He called them his town shirts. So when he came home from work, he changed into a town shirt if he was going back into town. A town shirt had to have two prerequisites. One, it had to be purchased at Value Village, and the other was had to have the most ridiculous saying going, or one of those tuxedo shirts.
Mhm.
So I always get people to wear their town shirt on his angelversary, and we raise money for a cause that would have meant something to him. So I had posted a
Beautiful.
few of Dylan's in his town shirts,
Mhm.
and my friend Kathy said, "Hold on, wait till I show you." She comes back with a picture of her son wearing the exact same shirt, only in different colors. Because we've said
Wow.
there about the similarities between
Mhm.
hers and my son. So now I think there's probably 3 working together, you know, because I see how Kathy has grown, but she's worked at it too. It's leaning into it.
Yeah.
It's taking courses. And she's been such an inspiring mentor to me. So to me, it's a gift that keeps on giving.
Yes. It
She's helped
certainly
me,
is.
you
You
know,
helped me.
and now we're just, it's
Mhm.
snowball.
Yeah.
And I really hope to change the way that people look at grief,
Yes.
because society, it's taboo.
Mhm.
You don't discuss it. You don't ever bring up the deceased loved one's name. It's like they don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that only by sharing our stories and talking about them and what is there, if you open yourselves to it, like it doesn't just affect a grieving person or a bereaved mother. This affects humanity as a whole. Because
Absolutely.
wouldn't the world just be a better place if I one day asked my husband, I said, do you think if people had a better understanding of what true unconditional love is, they would have a better understanding of grief?
Yeah.
His eyes glazed over. He's like a mechanical kind of guy. So I think when I say I'm going to catch up with you or I'm going to see Kathy, I think he's like relieved because he doesn't have to go this deep.
My husband is the same way.
So it's like, but he also, like, he's so supportive, but he also understands that if this is what's helping me, who else could it help?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
We are really here on this path of this journey to help others. Our purpose, it can be as simple as just teaching others love of self. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be this big, profound purpose, but through those experiences that we've had, we are here to teach others. And so I commend you. I'm so
Thank
grateful. I mean, so very grateful that we were able to connect early on after Anthony had
you.
passed. And I appreciate you doing this with us today and sharing your
Thank
story of
you.
Dylan. I think it's so important, the work you're doing, and I look forward to reading more of your Dear Dylan Love Mom Instagram.
Letters. Oh, there's
Mhm.
some, like, I've cursed him in them. I haven't decided if I'm posting those yet, but I will, because that's
Yeah.
grief,
It is. It's
you
part
know?
of the process.
Yeah.
Well,
So
thank you
this is
so much
fantastic.
today.
Thank you. You're the best.
Oh, thank you. You too. Let me just